before we start, I will put the link to links to the article on our VR community portal. This is the way how we're doing that right now. We usually collect all the links in the articles, so it's always available for anyone. In case if you subscribe to our community, you can revisit recent articles and see the links that we collected during the previous events and discussed. And now I think we can make a start, and I would like to say hello everyone. Hello, this is Friday, autumn, October 3rd, and this is another episode of .NET Morning Coffee. As usual, we're going to discuss some interesting updates and articles that we found during the period since the previous episode. And let's start from .NET 10 updates. So it's already October, and next month we will have the release of official release of .NET 10 by Microsoft. And the first link is about .NET 10 release candidate 1. So what does that mean? Release candidate 1 means this build goes with Go Live support license. So potentially you can use this release candidate on production, and Microsoft promises you to support with some security patches and critical bug fixes. So in case if you are brave enough, you can start adopting .NET 10 already today. And what else that means?
I think it's quite interesting what this license means, like with security patching. Do they plan to
so
patch release of
so after
candidate
.NET
1?
10 official release, you will still stay on .NET release candidate 1 and receive the security patches.
Because I suppose
don't know.
if you report something to them, they will just ask you to upgrade to big release, and that's all.
If we go here on this page, we will see that the end of the support is it's very strange. It's October
the date
14th.
of release candidate 2.
So it's just 1 month. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah. Anyway, so you have still 2 weeks of release candidate 1 with the full support from Microsoft. It's 2 weeks to update to release candidate 1, and then you will be out of support. That's strange. I agree. So what that also release candidate also means there are almost no new features in it, just minor tweaks, improvements, mostly in like.
Well, there are some exceptions to it. For some reason, like I can only guess of some of those reasons, that in this release candidate 1 entity framework core team decided to introduce, like, maybe not very huge, but significant improvement from my perspective. And it will be significant for everyone who tried to use JSON mapping for your kind of complex type properties in databases. Could you open this link?
Yeah, this one.
Not exactly. Next one, probably.
Okay, let's see. Cosmos full text search, complex types.
Yeah, for complex types. Because previously, to work with kind of schema typed with schema of your type, you have to define it by hand, each property, how it should map to JSON for it to be able to generate precise JSON update, insert kind of queries.
I see. So now you can map a complex property. Let's say you have an address property, and this is, and you, for some reason you store it as a JSON, and now you can map full property with, let's say, address line 1 or address line 2, zip code, and etc. to just JSON with this complex property mapping. That's
because
cool.
Previously they advertised that we have JSON mapping and support, you can use it, etc. But they didn't advertise how it looked like in reality and how much code you should write to map all properties for you to know exact schema of your type and to map it correctly to queries. Now it should be simpler.
Yeah, that's a nice improvement of entity framework. Alexander, I know you liked this one. Dark mode now fully integrated to Windows Forms.
Yeah. Of course,
That's your
like
favorite one, right?
not a favorite, but it's always interesting to have something new and a very old technology.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I was
no
trying it.
updates in WPF, but
No,
there are like plenty of updates in Windows Forms.
if
That's
if you're
cool.
interested, I can paste a screenshot into chat how it looks like the dark mode.
So you created an application with release candidate 1
Yeah,
to check how the dark mode. Well, please
yeah,
do the screenshot for us. I would love to see it. Okay, so from ASP.NET Core, I was surprised with these validation improvements for minimal API in Blazor. I didn't even know that minimal API doesn't support yet like validation attributes because this was historically a part of MVC. So minimal API
Because they usually
and
advertise what they add, but they don't show what they miss in comparison with controller-based approach. That's the catch of minimal API. You
well,
wouldn't know until you try.
yeah. Well, Windows Forms in dark mode looks
Looks
I
nice.
can't say
no,
anything.
not bad.
Better than nothing.
I'm
I
not sure that
remember.
it's nice. It depends
And
on your
also,
preferences.
yeah,
I remember in the.
also,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, it's related to AI stuff, maybe. Yeah, in release candidate 1. First of all, related to machine learning, they again highlighted that they're going to support some tensors, and related to search from different databases, in particular for entity framework, they are going to support a new type, vector type that was introduced to
Yeah.
MS SQL Server. Yeah, and now you're able to search directly by vectors, and also they introduce support for Cosmo DB, like full text and hybrid search. Yeah, for full text, they're going to use BM25 algorithm. Yeah, for full text, and based on it, you will be able to use hybrid search to return relevant data from Cosmo DB. And as a result, for your application, you're able to use not only dedicated vector databases.
So what
yeah,
you showed us, I do remember when you did this
Yes.
React presentation, you had a separate database, especially for doing vector searching. So now potentially you can have just a Microsoft SQL Server with vector and do the vector search through the entity framework core. So it's all the technologies that we know and love, and no needs to use Python, right? So it's just all .NET.
Yes.
That's cool. Yeah, and in case if you missed some features, we will definitely talk about them in details once the .NET 10 will be officially released. But at the bottom of this page, there are some extra links to the documentation. So, for example, you can see what's new in C# 14. The biggest feature is extension types, but I also liked how did they call it?
Null assignment.
Null. Yes, exactly.
Null
Null.
chain.
How did they call? Where is it? Null conditional assignments. Null conditional. This one. This is very cool. It wasn't supported before. You might think that it was supported, but it wasn't. So it will be supported starting from .NET 10. That's cool. Okay. Nice article. We're really close to .NET 10, and that also means we have a new performance improvements article by Steven Taub. Volodya, I know you. This is your favorite author and probably your favorite engineer from Microsoft, right?
Yeah, definitely, because he's a highly technical person who likes to dig deeper, and usually he doesn't care about some hype.
Yeah,
just cares about performance and all this stuff. And in this year, he also delivered. I'm not sure if it is bigger than previous years. I didn't see any comparison and didn't check by myself, but from my perspective, it was as big as previous. years, and it as detailed as previous years. He again shared benchmark code base, which you can just copy paste and use in your benchmark locally to see if it's real or not. And trust me, all of this is real. He described few, maybe not few, like a lot of major areas of improvements and investments by Microsoft. So there are a few of them which are most significant for a platform from my perspective. First one is expansion of their object stack allocation improvements. Previously, as like in .NET 9, there are some basic support for it, but now it's much more expanded.
Yeah, let's start from just a brief explanation. What is object stack allocation and why it is important?
It's important because you can now have very nice and interesting discussions on interviews on what's the difference between value
I still
and
always hear
reference
the
types.
same answers that are almost in most of the cases are incorrect. That we have value reference types. Value types are located on stack. Reference types are located on heap, which is totally wrong because reference value type could be a part of, for example, reference type, and in that case, it will be allocated in heap. And it also could be a part of the closure, and in that case, it will be also located in heap. And even in .NET 9, we have like minor chances that some of the reference types could be allocated on stack. But starting from .NET 10, there will be even more cases, right? So .NET compiler and JIT will be even more brave.
If I remember correctly, in .NET 9, there was only some basic scenarios, like when you create new instance of type and just use its property and then just throw away. And it was able to deduct that, it doesn't try to escape from stack and we can allocate it on stack. But now they expanded it to additional types, to collections, to additional scenarios. They expanded their escape analysis functionality when they try to see if it's safe to allocate it on stack or not. And if I read it correctly, it's even able to check cross methods, not just in single methods, so it expands applicability as well. Why it matters is because in high performance scenarios, you don't want to allocate a lot of memory on a heap because it's not for free, it's not cheap. Like allocation is cheap, but additional
collection,
like additional work that garbage collector have to do later on is not cheap, is not free. It consumes CPU, and CPU is what matters for scalability for applications because it's most expensive part of PC. Not memory is not expensive. Like usually it doesn't matter much that we allocate less. It matters where we allocate and how we collect, and if we collect at all. Because on stack, collection is kind of for free. You just change reference, change pointer.
You just exit from the scope where the variable was declared, and that's it.
So in .NET 10, they expanded it to closures, to collections, and to additional scenarios with objects when they use properties, etc. And on screen, you can see several such benchmarks when something allocated and then something is iterated over, for example. And as usual, these improvements don't work alone. They work kind of together because in this release, it's not only about stack allocation, it's also about virtualization, and they can work together nice because some collections can be allocated on a stack, and then we can see exact type, and then we can optimize how we work with it. Like we can.
So basically, those like stack allocation, devirtualization, bounds check, all these performance improvements work together and significantly reduce the amount of code that needs to be executed, the amount of memory allocated on heap, and reduce GC pressure on the CPU because less objects will have to be collected. So there is a great potential in all these improvements, right? And this is, again, probably not the final stage. There will be even more improvements in the upcoming releases, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
So, okay, JIT, the abstraction, bounce check. So bounce check, it's the checks that JIT currently does in order to check that you are not trying to escape out of the arrays. In some cases, it's totally redundant when the algorithms, internal algorithms could prove that checks are not needed because you are 100% safe and you are just iterating in the range of the array. So then you don't need these extra checks, and that means less code will be executed.
It's quite interesting to see bounce check block in each such article each year. Each year it looks like, yeah, we did everything. There's nothing to optimize. Like it's maximum of what we know. And then next year it's even more opportunities.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much it will last, but let's see.
It's interesting, right? Because the .NET initially, like 25 years ago, was launched as a very safe language, very safe platform for code execution. But time passed and people started realizing, because of all these safety checks, all this extra care from the runtime perspective, we got a lot of performance penalties. And now, one by one, Microsoft is doing a revision of all these safety things, and they are trying to reduce them when they are redundant. That's very interesting. So probably we at some point will be able to say it's not as safe as it was before, but still safe and performant. So it's kind of trade-offs, right?
Yeah, definitely.
What else would you like to highlight here?
I like to highlight a lot of points in this list on the right part. Like a lot of improvements everywhere in each area. It's hard to describe all of them on this short call in 1 hour, but it's up to you to check by yourself this article and see what was improved, how it might affect you, because basically what's most important for us as a kind of plain .NET developers is that it will be provided to you for free. You don't have to change your code. You don't have
and
to
I
do
know
anything.
that
Like it's
on your project, Volodya, you are always doing the upgrade and your project is very focused on the performance. This performance is really important.
It's
because you have a
important
lot of data to be
scalability and
processed.
costs. And like I can say that we tried to use in a very dumb way .NET 10 Preview 6 or maybe even 5. It was on one of our services which is responsible for device simulation, and it yields around 15% of CPU reduction just by changing target SDK without any changes from code base. And it was not even close to release candidate.
Extremely significant numbers.
We didn't try to compare memory, etc. Just CPU that we checked. And like update to new version is relatively easy when you keep up with updates. Like one of our services is on .NET 9 currently, and I already created draft PR on release candidate 1 to upgrade to .NET 10, and the only thing I had to do is just update target SDK, and everything works, test passed, and I was able to use some nice new analyzers and refactorings already. So let's see when it releases.
And you can also check the breaking changes in the .NET 10 release candidate article, and there are not a lot of them, so it's just really minor things in most of the cases. So Microsoft is trying to be very accurate in that, in breaking changes. Right. Okay, so let's speed up a little bit. 3 more articles about .NET 10. This is about CLI testing workflow. So Microsoft is starting pushing what they call Microsoft Testing Platform, or MTP. Currently, most of us probably use VS Test. What that means, VS Test is a standalone executive that actually executes your tests in the project, in the test project. While this MTP is an attempt to bring everything you need for tests right into your testing project. So less intermediate layers, faster and reliable tests you have. So then there is, in this article, there is some deep dive explanation of what's going on with some references to other articles. But yeah, so this MTP is coming, and probably initially we will be replaced. So our testing projects will be replaced to this MTP.
I think it's worth to dedicate separate session just to this area, because it's kind of promising, but for now it's very kind of unpredictable, like what improvements it can yield on real project.
Yeah, it's like not very specific, I would say. In the article, they are just telling, well, potentially we reduce this usage of this VS tests. We don't need VS test anymore, so it's just your test project that can produce all the reports, all the outcomes, and then Visual Studio or other IDE can just visualize in its UI.
Because recently a lot of kind of major frameworks released new version which supports this testing platform MTP, out of the box, and it's not clear of like how it can change behavior in real project, like because most of our projects are still on XUnit 2, for example, and XUnit 3 already on version 2 or even 3. So
yeah, so let's move on. A few more articles from Andrew Locke, author of the book about ASP.NET Core, very active blogger, and he is exploring .NET 10. In this article, he's exploring packaging self-contained and native AUT.NET tools for NuGet. So you can just build a .NET tool and distribute it through the NuGet ecosystem, and it's all native AUT. So that means no extra dependencies, small footprint. Yeah, really nice opportunity.
Faster startup, which matters for CLI tool.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this one is quite related, so you can publish platform-specific .NET tools. Okay. So .NET SDK. So this is what we have currently. It's not .NET 10 related. Well, partially related to .NET 10. This one, it's about changing the support for the STS releases. So you know that we had like LTS versions and STS, short-term support versions. So LTS was supported for 3 years, STS for 1.5 years. So they extended STS to 2 years, from 1.5 years to 24 months. The motivation is simple: to encourage people to stay up to date, and some of the prices there could be even restrictions. So we are sticking just to LTS because we have support for 3 years. So now there is a less motivation to have such kind of restrictions, because STS, it's 24 months, it's 2 years. Well, that's plenty of time. So you during this 24 months, you have 2 releases of .NET. So
actually, it's interesting that they published it prior to release of LTS, because now it gives less reasons to update to .NET 10 because you can stay on .NET 9 longer.
Yeah, yes and no. So if you want to get better performance, then there is a reason. Well, but at least this should reduce some friction in the enterprise organizations when developers want to make the updates faster. Well, that's just a positive update. Nothing to criticize here.
I would say these changes give you a bit more time. It means that you don't need to do this right after. Yeah, in a rush.
Right. .NET Aspire 9.5 with some interesting new capabilities. what do we have here? One of the large features of this release is, well, the CLI experience, we had this before, so now they are improving the CLI experience so you can build your .NET Aspire projects without the IDE. And that's cool. And it's becoming even more mature. The preview version of a single file uphost support. So one of the features of .NET 10 will be file-based projects without CSProsh. So all the references are just in your files. Kind of interesting capability. We will explore, I believe, it a lot, and maybe we will see some small projects that don't have centralized CSProsh and just have file references. So the Aspire will support single file. So it's already supports, but you need .NET 10 to use it. What else? Add-on project. Okay, so that's about file base. Just improvements of the UI, like this one. So currently, in the previous release, you was able to see the logs only for one resource. You will be able to see for all the resources the logs. Some updates of the LLM, dev tunneling. This is I like it. I use it a lot. So dev tunnels is a capability that allows to expose you what is run on your local machine to the internet. For example, you have some local build and you want testers to do some tests. This is very useful. You can do the dev tunnels. This is supported, by the way, in Visual Studio Code. I'm not sure about Visual Studio, but in Visual Studio it's very straightforward. So you can expose any port, and then you get a special link, so everyone can, if they receive the link, they can visit the link and interact with your application that is run on your local machine. You don't have to publish it anywhere. That's very handy if you need just minor checks. We use it, for example, in the projects where we need to check the mobile, for example, version. For example, you are doing the responsive application and you want to make sure that it feels good on let's say Safari on your iOS, and you can.
One note here: you have to log into Microsoft to have
No,
access.
no.
Really?
No, there are two options. You can make the private tunnel, and you can make it public. If you make it private, then yes, it requires the authentication. And if you make it public, it doesn't require anything. So
Really?
everyone can.
I didn't see this option. Okay.
Yeah. So it public and private. So, and this is now supported by the Aspire. Very nice feature. Very nice feature. If you didn't hear about that, and you have some mobile testing capabilities, definitely worth to try.
And again, related to AI, yes,
Yes.
because you highlighted that they introduced some insights for understanding your interaction with LLM. So now you're able to see what system prompt you sent and which output you receive based on it. So as a result, you will be able to understand it more smooth way rather than see some concern logs, for instance. Yes, now you're able to see some insights, what was sent and what you received from LLM, and understand why.
Absolutely, super useful in case if you have AI capabilities on the project. So this is about .NET Spark CLI. More details. Let's skip it to cover everything that we wanted to cover. It's a lot of updates, right? Since the previous morning coffee. So this MauiReactor, I think, well, it's from Microsoft employee, right? But it's about MVU approach for .NET MAUI. That's very interesting. MVU.
Yeah.
Is it came from some Google project? From Flutter, right? This
Flutter.
is Flutter.
Flutter probably, we can say that also inspired by React.js. Almost the same thing, right? Probably we need to say a few words about what is the difference between MVU and MVVM. So the main difference, it is the concept. So in MVVM you have a separation between a view model, and data itself, like a state, right? And the MVU, you have a view and logic combined, and the state, like a model, separated. What is the benefit of it? Of course, it is predictable state management, right? You can simplify hot reloading. I can explain why it is simplified a bit later. So, of course, it will be supported by any IDE, and based on some benchmarks, it has a bit more performance than usual approach. Saying about this concrete library, it is not a really new library. Initially it was created about 10 years ago, and all those past years it was growing and growing, and now the name of it is like MauiReactors, right? So based on the GitHub repository, it unfortunately doesn't have a lot of stars, but based on what I see, it's a pretty mature thing. So it has a testing, it has a ability to create its own theming, so you don't need to create styling using XAML, old XAML thing. You can create your styles based on this MVU approach, everything in the C# code. What else? Also, it supports importing already existing components implemented in the standard and the VM approach, and it has a kind of bunch of source generators, which is generate the necessary wrappers around them, and you will be easily using this thing inside the MVU application. How it looks like. If you're familiar with the Flutter, right, it will be almost the same thing. So your code looks like one single function, which will be executed every time, and the state is kind of immutable. Right? Yes.
This counter page.
Right. So probably the biggest benefit of it is I would call two from my perspective. The first one, it is more, it looks more readable, at least for me. So everything in one place. You don't need to create more kind of boilerplate, which we should create in VVM, like
commands. MVVM is very, I would say, verbose, redundant,
right? You don't need to do commands, can execute all those things, right?
So just here in VM, just adding simple thing, you need to do a lot.
Right. Here, everything that you have to use it is just a C#. You don't need to XAML. And for example, converters, a good example. I think if you were using the MVVM, you have to create converters to do some conversion to necessary thing. But here you can just write a function which will return the necessary value from you, and that's it. And the second benefit, it is a hot reload. It is they call it true hot reload. Why? Because because they are replacing the entire assembly during this hot reload. So it is fully compiled, like changing your car while you are driving, something like this, and you do not notice this change. And the MauiReactor supports two ways of hot reloading. The first one, it is a standard.NET approach, but it has a way of limitation, various of limitations, and they have its own library, its own tooling to make hot reload a bit more smarter and more enhanced. So
it's interesting that the community project has such a complicated things, right?
Yeah, really.
Outstanding.
When I was reading this article, I was kind of impressed how many things they're implemented, and they still have 650 stars on GitHub. I don't know.
I did +1 when I read this article. Okay, so +2 maybe.
So and last few words about the hot reloading. So they're able to. It works really quick, and they're replacing entire assembly. And the magic is that they're able to keep the context of your application because the state is separated, and the hot reload smart enough to pre-save it and apply it to your controls again. You will notice the change. Of course, if you change the value itself, of course it will not be able to do this. But if you change just the controls, position styles, or add few more controls, it will be like a quick, immediate update in your application. For for XAML or, for example, for Avalonia, it doesn't work this way. Avalonia has a kind of beta, I would say, the third-party library, which is trying to introduce the MVU approach, but still the early alpha. This thing it looks really nice. Yep. Who's using MAUI? Advice to try it.
So it's interesting, the last sentence, this sentence. So there are some frameworks mentioned. WPF, Avalonia, Uno,
Yeah.
that's not as very famous, but this one, Drown UI and Spice, I never heard about.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, and yeah, let's talk about them separately maybe sometime. Really quick about the future of Avalonia's rendering.
This article is about just saying about the future of. They're saying thank you, Skia Sharp library, because it was very mature. They're heavily using it, and they will be using it in the future. Thanks of this library, the Avalonia is in the state where it is now, right? It is pretty mature and pretty popular framework, which is used in the very big companies. But they want to grow up, they want to move on and then move forward, and they want to try to use the GPU-based rendering.
Yeah.
They decided to try to use Vela, I suppose the right pronunciation.
Yeah, I guess.
It is Rust-based library, which is natively created to use GPU, not as a second source of rendering, it will be primary source to draw something on your screen will be GPU, and the Avalonia tried to use it as another level of rendering or something like this. In the next upcoming version, number 12, they will be during the 12th version, like the 12th version will have a bunch of releases. They will start to introduce this thing. It will be kind of optional, enabled, or because they're just trying, right? But based on their internal kind of testing of these things, early testing, in some scenarios, it's 100 times faster than Skia Sharp library. And of course, it will allow you to create more information. A lot of things can be done more smooth or more performant in comparison with the CPU and the. So yeah, I'm waiting for it. Definitely will check this out, how it works in the near future. Yep, cool thing.
Okay, yeah, that were a few updates about UI frameworks. And we have also AI block. So what do we have here?
I believe we can open all of the links and I will go through the brief.
Yeah, so let's start from this.
Okay, let's start with it.
Prompt files.
Prompt files, yeah,
and
it's reusable
files.
components that were introduced in GitHub Copilot. So now instead of writing the same prompt every time in the chat to perform some work, you are able to create a prompt file with general steps, for instance, like implement the task, run the test, run the build project, and instead of writing the stuff every time, you just create a prompt file and just call it in your chat. And the second also article highlight that we are able to have not only the prompt files, but also instruction files. And we are able to create a general instruction file like GitHub Copilot .md, yes, and it will be usable for every request to LLM. But also we are able to create specific instruction for dedicated folder, for dedicated files, like for instance, for Python, you will be use this instruction, but for C#, for Blazor, you will use other instructions. Yeah, and moreover, unfortunately, in this article, it wasn't highlighted that for instance, to call prompt file, from Visual Studio Code, you should type splash and the name of the prompt, but in Visual
it's
Studio,
this
yes, it's hash, and
it's
like
hash. Yeah, it's strange. Yeah, it's the
yes,
same vendor
different
basically, but
synthesis,
two different ways. Yeah, I saw this in one of these articles. It is here. It is
yes,
here. It's just so strange. So
yes, it's
I
for me
wanted
as
to
well.
on that make a small comment. So previous our event was about adding some capabilities to the existing solution, and if you were there, you probably remember that we were not very successful. Well, we had partial success, but we had a lot of complexities, and this is probably the secret sauce that we missed. So maybe by doing these fine tunings by using the Copilot instructions and the reusable prompts, maybe we would be able to achieve more and have like more positive results. And I know, Artur, you are doing some experiments, so maybe we will have one more run of doing the
Yes.
same tasks sometime later, maybe this month or next month, where you will do the like precise tuning of the LLM by all these instructions, and we will see how it how it influences on the final results.
Yes.
Definitely would be interesting to compare. Okay, so this
What
one,
else?
just I think this is just a
Yeah.
practical example. Yeah, but you can
No,
experiment.
they just added a new abstraction for image generator.
Sorry, I missed
Yeah,
it,
because now with working with Microsoft Extension AI, you're able to create a chat client, you're able to create a embedded generator, and now they added a new abstraction like image generator. So
you can interact with image generation model to build some images from your .NET application.
Yes.
Which kind of opinionated use case, but potentially you might have some you need to have some capabilities to build in a real time to build some images, generate some images, stubs, and you have an appropriate abstraction for that. So I believe you would be able to do that anyway with some APIs, but now you have nicely looking interfaces for doing that. Well, that's good anyway. Okay. This one. I think this is the dream of all the managers, right?
Maybe.
Manager's dream.
Yeah, because they added GitHub app in Teams, and now you are able to interact with your GitHub Copilot agent, yes, by this Teams application. So you're able to call GitHub agent and delegate some work to it, and it will work. But the same stuff you're able to do in Visual Studio Code. So, and also you will be able to see which step at the current moment GitHub Copilot is doing, etc. But maybe it's like more control,
This is so fun. I just started imagining how instead of writing to the developer who produced the code, manager will start chasing the GitHub Copilot agent to fix the bugs. And I just imagine that there is a bug. It manager asked to fix the bug. Then next day, developer came to his work and see that it's all kind of fix it by the AI.
Moreover, like in example, they just type fix this issue.
Fix it.
Yes,
Fix it.
Yes,
make
fix
everything
it.
correctly.
Yes, and it's strange that they just rely on the GitHub Copilot agent will understand your business, your repository, because unfortunately on our previous session we saw that it's not true. You need to create a lot of stuff in addition.
Yeah.
By the way, I missed, is it going to trigger GitHub Copilot coding agent?
Yeah.
Coding agent, okay.
Yes.
Coding,
not on local machine in GitHub Actions. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a very promising thing, but it's very difficult to set up and configure on a real world project because like you make to provide it with working environment, dev environment, and usually dev environment setup is pretty complex thing. let alone VPN access to some private packages, some additional stuff to be installed and configured. It's very, very, very difficult to do in real project. But yeah,
Agree.
Okay. This one.
Yeah, it's just like they introduced
Minor thing, yeah?
auto mode,
Auto selection.
auto selection. So because, for instance, if you have a lot of files in your repository, and when you ask Copilot to do something, it go through all these files, and every time, yeah, it's for me, for eShop container, I received like rate limit exception,
Yeah.
and I need to manually click continue to proceed with analyzing corresponding files. And here you are able to enable auto model selection, and you won't see this exception because it will call another model. Just
yeah. So minor tweak of the agents and models usage. Very handful. This article, I really like it. It's Microsoft Agent Framework for .NET.
like Microsoft again introduced
Yet
new
another
framework based on the
AI framework library, right?
based on the existing frameworks, because at the current moment we have like semantic kernel agent framework and autogen.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And they just combine
Together.
these two frameworks together and show, okay, we have a new framework, we bring the best from each of them, and adding additional abstractions
abstraction on top of abstractions.
yes, the Microsoft extension AI, and so you can create so powerful agent application. Moreover, you're able to add workflows, but for instance, for semantic kernel agent, for semantic kernel, we have another framework like processing framework, and here it's like workflow. So I believe they just maybe I don't know. I'm going to try this particular new framework to understand which capability it has. Maybe it's really bring the best from each frameworks, and we can create something interesting with it. And it works pretty good for me, trivial like examples.
Yeah,
but
we don't know how it will work.
Because I tried semantic kernel agent framework for like business purpose, and unfortunately it cannot follow all these steps that they promised. In this article, okay, just use it, it will follow all steps, all tools, etc.
The whole thing with these libraries looks like upside down financial pyramid when they have to kind of justify existence of some libraries by reusing them, or like by some higher level abstractions, and next iteration has less libraries which reuse more libraries from previous layers.
So Arthur, you need to hurry up, because if you wait for a long time, then they will introduce one more framework on top of existing ones.
Yes.
And yeah. So
it's not a joke. I believe it's not a joke,
it's
because
not a joke,
they
unfortunately.
Yes.
So anyway, it's interesting. There is a showcase how you can combine. Well, first of all, you will be able to understand what is agent by going through this article, and how the particular task could be decomposed into agent interaction chain that potentially will get you much better results, much more meaningful results than just a direct prompt to your LLM. So it's a flow that you can building like placing agent by agent and doing the interactions between them and loops to get the desired results. So there is a big potential, and all, I think, modern AI native applications, they are built with these agents chain capabilities in, like, probably there are a lot of frameworks Python based, but now we have .NET based things, and we had before, but now we have yet another one. Definitely worth to read the article to get some understanding of how the modern AI applications could be built. That's a kind of even architectural point of view, right? It's not just, okay, so I need to use LLM, I need them to send a request to GPT chat and get the result. No, it's not like that. You can do even, you can have more clever things, right? Okay, this article, I liked it, except the fact that it is yet another framework. Yes, few more links, and we're almost at the end. This is about Visual Studio. This one, it's about Visual Studio 2026 Insiders. This is a kind of new generation of Visual Studio, at least what we can see in this small, brief showcase. The UI is totally different. It looks more like a Visual Studio Code UI. And probably there will be a lot of legacy thrown out of the Visual Studio, because Visual Studio is very legacy application. It's very legacy. It seems like it's a significant rewrite. Well, however, this screenshot looks more similar to what we have. Maybe not everything is positive as they promised. What else they are promising is blazing fast performance, and there are some feedbacks from people who tried. So they even had to do this censoring things, because the person who tried was full of emotions, how fast the new version of Visual Studio. We will have seaming capabilities. You can see it's kind of nicely seamed application will be the Visual Studio. You can start trying it, I guess, right? You can go and download and try. Definitely promising. This is promising. And this one, what we have for today, this is Visual Studio 2022 in 2020, at the end of 2025 year. We still received 2022 Visual Studio with updates. But probably the most interesting one is this profiler capabilities by Copilot, right?
Yes. But again, they try to add a lot of AI stuff. I don't know, like, okay, please analyze my application to understand some bottlenecks in performance. But again, it's strange, yeah, when we try to delegate all this stuff to some profilers. I'm not sure that
it will work correctly.
Yes,
for
yes.
non-synthetic things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It
agree.
seems like the backporting improvements from 2026 back to 2022. Because, for example, performance agent benchmark kind of healthcare agent was advertised on 2026.
Okay, interesting, yeah. And the last one will be a very nice article. People who love Postgres should be excited due to Postgres 18, right? I know
love and who has opportunity to upgrade to it on his project. We would like to upgrade to it on our project, for example, but we are still on the latest patch of Postgres 14 because of the way how Azure upgrades major versions. It cannot upgrade without downtime. And the bigger database, the more connections, the more load, the bigger downtime. And they cannot do it. They cannot do anything around it. They propose some improvements to make it less painful, but it will be like 10 minutes of the complete downtime for production system.
Might not be for some real-time systems that should be available 24 hours. Might not be a good decision. Yeah, so what would you highlight here, Volodya? What do you like?
Bit skip scan. I like this feature because it kind of it allows to not care about what is the order of properties in index, and if you use them in the right order, and if you use all properties from index in your query. It can reuse existing indices when your query contains only one of properties. And like it's a kind of huge problem on our project as well, because usually like developer doesn't care and doesn't see, doesn't check,
doesn't
and doesn't
know
see
because,
like
yeah,
how index is configured on his properties. He just, let's write some where close to filter what he needs to complete his task. And then how it behaves later on in production, it's not his.
Yeah, and let's say it could be even not the worst case performance, right? It's just moderate, but in case if he used the indexes in the proper way, he would get 10 times faster response, right? Which
like it's hard to tell improvements around, for example, IO read, because it improves, it doesn't block as it was blocking before, but like it's hard to predict how exactly it will behave on real system in some scenarios. I didn't see any benchmarks yet. But it's something promising. It might improve a lot of things, but how exactly, hard to tell.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the last article. And we can wrap up. Thanks everyone who watched us, and please don't forget to rate our today's event and give some stars to the speakers, and visit our article, explore the links, do the dive in what is most interested for you, and stay tuned. We will come back to you soon with new updates and new interesting stuff.